This DJNTV show is sponsored by DJ Event Planner, Electra Voice, DJ Trivia and DJ Bingo, ProX Direct, Odyssey Cases, Perfect Portals, Instant DJ Requests, and our DJNTV Insiders. This is John Young from DJNTV. Thanks for watching.
Good evening and welcome to a wonderful Monday night. I know like half of our audience is like tuning in from Vegas, like they're eating dinner and they got their phones propped up and they're not having conversation with anybody else because they know they need to be right here. And for everybody else that's not in Vegas, well, we love you even more because, you know, you're here with us and you're spending time with us.
And we're here for you.
Exactly. You know, I got nothing to say to that. I don't know. I was going to try and go some other weird way, but John just made me feel uncomfortable. So everybody's ready to have some fun today. In case you didn't notice, like in the description there, tonight is question and answer night. So we've got some questions, but we encourage you by all means, throw them into the chat. And if we can't get to them tonight, we'll add them into our list of things to definitely hit for the future.
So tonight, the questions, we're going to hit one question, but this is one that will not be put into when we break them down. Somebody was asking about any new gear leaks from the Mobile Entertainment Expo. I have not seen much of anything yet. The closest to anything has been a little picture that Rachel Lynch put up with a Max design thing. So nothing that we know of yet. But tomorrow at 6 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock Eastern, we're going to be doing a special Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe from Las Vegas. And Ben he's going to basically take us around all the new things that they're going to be having at the show. So tune in tomorrow. Again, 7 o'clock Eastern. That'll be a special version of Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe. If you want to find the link, I'll put that on my Facebook page, facebook.com/JohnYoungMN. It'll be up there, and then we'll be sharing it around tomorrow for tomorrow night. So, hi guys, I had the questions all put together for you, and you guys have been studying, and you're ready to go.
Yes, yeah, just like I always.
Yes, wonderful.
In school, crammed 5 seconds before the test.
Tonight we have some really in-depth questions, and we're going to start out with a series of gear questions, and we're going to put the little marker here for edit, and we'll be right back with our first question of the night. Our first question for tonight is about speaker wattage. People have been asking, they want to upgrade speakers, and they're like, hey, how many watts of sound do I need to cover a 200-person wedding? Cubby, if somebody comes up to you and says, hey, I've got 1,000 watts of power, and I'm going to be able to cover this room, what is your first thought?
Sometimes I don't think it's the wattage as much. I think it's more the coverage. Where can you put it to make sure it goes out as well as it could be received. Make sure the spray is, the back and forth to the left. But I would, what's the size of the room? How many guests we got coming? It's kind of a vague question. So I'm going to pass the day in.
My response was going to be Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe's tomorrow night. What are we answering this question for tonight?
What are these wattage things? Yeah.
But in all seriousness, like the wattage, exactly as Cubby was trying to say, the wattage is not a true indication of the sound. I mean, for a while there, speaker companies were like, we've got 1,000 watts of power. Here's a speaker with 2,000 watts. And it was just like, it was this race to put some number on the thing. And when it came down to it, the question really became the power consumption and what it was using. The wattage doesn't mean that it's going to be louder. So the things that you really want to look for when you're looking at the speakers and you're trying to compare the different ones is, most speaker lines have different tiers within their systems, so you have an idea of what might be a better version of the speaker. But then you're also looking for decibel output. Like, what's that sound pressure? How loud is it going to be, right? And that's going to be some of the things that you're going to want to have. Also, you might have something that's really loud and it's got a 10-inch sub, or you've got something else that's really loud and it's got a 15-inch sub. Well, do you want them to be able to feel it, or do you want them to be able to hear it? And that's kind of just the difference between the two. Obviously, the feeling would be the 15. So, things like that are really going to be the things that play into that decision way more than wattage ever will. In fact, I've heard it one time, if you could have a 1500 watt speaker or a 1000 watt speaker, the 1000 watt speaker is just maybe more efficient if it's producing the same level of sound. Wow, I felt like Ben for a second.
Yeah, you did well.
Yeah,
you did well.
you channeled Ben.
I spent 1 week with him last week, and suddenly.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to just filter all questions to Dan when it comes to gear. It'll be great. The word you missed, or the letters you missed, is SPL, which is the measurement of sound pressure with 1 watt. Basically, it's a measurement 1 watt of input power. And then that's at 1 meter, and that's the SPL, or the volume, we'll call it, that you're getting out of that speaker. The more efficient speaker will have a higher SPL rating, and then you have a max SPL rating, which generally with most speaker companies is calculated. It's not a real thing, because as you go from that first efficient SPL, where it's a little higher rating, every time you double the power going into it, you're bumping that up three additional dB on the SPL, so that you can calculate what that should be. In reality, if you've seen some of my speaker tests that I've done out here, where I've had 12-inch or 15-inch cabinets outside, and we're testing those, we're getting at that distance. I can get 115, maybe 120 if I'm really lucky, decibel reading, but they're designed, or they're tested, or projected to be like 125 or 130. Yes, it is possible, I suppose, to get that in the right situation, but I'm testing them out here in the driveway. Now, does that mean that doesn't give you enough sound pressure for a dance floor? Well, if we flash back to Ben Stowe, he talked about, if I'm at 105 decibel on a dance floor, that's pretty loud. That's uncomfortably loud. And I think that's kind of a big thing that a lot of DJs probably don't pay attention to, is that you want to have the ability to go up, but you don't have to be up all the time. Kebby, I liked that you started out talking about dispersion when it came to coverage of the room. That's something that really gets overlooked tremendously. And that if you've ever looked at the Evolve 50s, they have those little wave guides on the speakers. It isn't just the little cones. There's these little plasticky things in front of that. And what those plasticky things are doing is they're helping to expand a full sound to the left and right, and having that wider dispersion. The little mini arrays have a wider dispersion to begin with, and then with that waveguide, it even gives a little bit more clarity on those extremes, which is really kind of an important thing when you're talking about covering a room. And then, of course, it fits into what Dan was saying, is that if you've got a small sub, you're not going to have as much feel of the bass. You might be able to hear it, but a 12-inch on your mini array is going to have less thump feel than a 15-inch or an 18-inch. You get back to, what do I really need for the type of events I do? Do I need to have a big thump, or is a little bit of a thump in the middle of our dance floor, as Brian Red likes to talk about? I have the thump right in front, in the middle of my dance floor, the sweet spot of the dance floor, and then after that, it's a nice sound quality around the room where people can talk and engage. Getting the proper gear, I think, is huge in that world. Day and Night mentions 100 decibel is plenty loud at a wedding. Yeah, if you can... With most speakers, if you're at 115 in front of them, and then you continue to go back and back and back, by the time you're at the other end of the dance floor, the other side, you're at 100 decibels. You've got speakers that are doing the job, doing it, I would perceive, very, very well. So it's not wattage. It's the speaker SPL, the efficiency. The dispersion is important. This, your ultimate outcome. It all fits together. Just checking. Okay, excellent. Gentlemen, let's jump to the next one. We've got another gear question, and we're going to get into some money questions here. Right at this. Okay, we're going to get into another Ben Stowe level topic. Guys, somebody wanted to talk about diversity of microphones. What's the difference between true diversity and non-diversity and all these different aspects of it? I'll dig into that part of it. I'll handle the tech side of it. when you guys are looking at microphones, has that been a concern for you? And what little bit have you heard about those things as far as that you should be looking for one or the other? Dan,
Yeah,
you want to give us the tech side of it first?
Okay, I can certainly do that. There's really multiple different types of antenna systems for wireless microphones. There is the non-diversity, which is generally a single whip antenna. I don't even have one of those, but you guys have seen them. They could be the UHF, whatever, but it's a one, and that antenna feeds into the little tuner, and it goes out and it does its thing and into your mixer. That means that if there's an interference between the transmitting, my wireless microphone and that antenna, I'm basically done. That you're going to have the static. Then there is a diversity system. Now, a diversity system has a little more technology, and it's a 2 antenna system. And what happens is that it has 2 antennas, and then there's a little microprocessor kind of between the 2 antennas that looks and says, oh, antenna A is getting a better signal. We're going to use that one. Oh, wait a second. Antenna A is not, but antenna B, we're going to use antenna B. So there's a little piece that's between the antennas and the tuner. There's only one tuner in there. That diversity has one tuner, and that little tuner then will be told which antenna it's going to send. The signal gets sent to it, and then the tuner does its thing. Many companies make microphones a diversity microphone, and that's what they really push, especially if you're buying them on Amazon. Those diversity microphones will give you better coverage than the non-diversity, but they're not as good as the final step, which is true diversity. And those are the ones that most of us are buying, where it has the 2 antennas, so it looks the same as the diversity, and you're like, well, what's the big deal? Well, instead of having the antennas and then that little microprocessor brain, it has 2 antennas, it has 2 tuners. Then it has that little microprocessor brain, and that little microprocessor now is looking at what's coming out of the tuners and seeing which one is the best signal coming out of the tuners. So the tuners are doing all the heavy lifting, doing the best they can. Then the ultimate, that little microchip is now saying, ooh, look at tuner A is doing so much better. We like tuner A, or back and forth. That system is much more reliable, has many fewer dropouts, and gives you a better range. So you've got your 3 different levels of microphone. There's a difference in cost. You're talking, the non-diversity is like pennies on the dollar. That's something you buy, and the karaoke singer's 10 feet out there, it'll fuzz out. But, hey, if they throw it in a beer, who cares? It's, $20. The diversity microphones, same situation, you might get 30, 40 feet out of it, whatever the distance is, but it's also less expensive. So if the whole thing takes a dive, I'm only out $100 or $79 is typically what you find. Then you get into the true diversity. There's more invested in that. There's more technology in that. There's more gear inside, whatever, and they do cost a little bit more. So prior to, have you guys been looking for something when you've gone microphone shopping? Has that been part of your thought process?
I first of all never buy off Amazon. I buy everything from NLFX and my friends, and I really refer to them. Every show I talk about, I'm a big EV fan. I got the EV R3s. I talked to my friend Kat or Ben up there, and they helped me get the right for my locale. They get the right head for me, everything I need. I do the true diversities. It's amazing. So yeah, I rely on people that I can call and talk to, and Amazon's not those. So I got the EVs diversity, EV RE3s through my friends at NLFX, and it's an amazing microphone. I've dropped that thing a ton of times, and it still works. It's amazing.
And I think that's really the route I've gone. I have gotten some other microphones over the years as we're buying and such, but now we've gotten to the point is the microphones that I want to use in the field. It's like I'm just going to go to Ben, what would you recommend? I don't, until I started digging into the whole diversity thing and such, I knew there was a difference, but the actual why and how much of a difference in the end outcome, I didn't really pay that much attention to it, because I was like, Ben, what do you recommend? Okay, well, or let's see, what is Ben using at this show? Oh, he's using the EVRE3 system. Yeah, that must mean that I should be using it too. So that's how I've kind of gone. Dan, what have your kind of methodologies been?
Yeah, I didn't look for the idea of diversity versus true diversity. Yeah, to be honest with you, that's why I share the tech side, because I never even put two thoughts into that. My piece all along has been the range that I'm going to get out of it, the sound that I'm going to get out of it, and the risk of dropout. So indirectly, I was looking for the true diversity. I have the Sennheiser G3 and the G4s.
Good
I
units.
personally like the metal case of the handheld. That's why it's weird. I like that piece, but again, like the same idea was, it was more about, I guess, what I got out of the true diversity without realizing that's what it was that I was going for.
And I think that, again, that happens with, I think, a lot of us that we just have our favorite dealer, whether it's Ben or whoever. And, we put faith in them to say, recommend something that's going to do the job that we need them to do. So there we go. The microphone question. Let's jump to our next question. So someone was asking a question about mini line arrays, the Evolve 50s, the Evox J series, whatever. There's many companies out there that are producing some really nice, many nice little speaker systems. There we go. First off, if somebody says, "Hey, Cubby, are they worth investing? What are the benefits of having those over maybe a different type of more traditional speaker system?" What would you give them for advice and thoughts?
I love my Evolve 50s. I love my mini line range. Like I said, if you talk about there's other brands, I've stuck with the Evolve 50s. The setup is amazingly easy. You drop your sub, put a stick on it, throw it on top. I'm no longer like trying to lift a big speaker up there, roll a sub in. It's just it's everything I need. I'm a wedding DJ. I do some corporate events. I've kind of moved out of schools. I have some other DJs who do schools, but they're using the other different speakers. But I love mini line range, and I think they're well worth the investment. You just got to pick your brand. There's a lot of good ones out there. I'm just a fan of EVs, and I love them. I got 6 pairs of EVs and 1 pair of EV30s. So
nice.
I think best investment. It was seriously one of the best investments.
So you like easy setup and such. And if for people when it comes to, can you tell a difference in the sound quality if you would be at a wedding and they blindfolded you and you had the Evolves and a non-Evolve, a sub top, could you tell a difference, do you think?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I could. Very much so.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of that also, the easiest place to say is, where am I sitting in that room? Right. We talked about dispersion in one of our other topics tonight. And that right there was, kind of the key. Sometimes I find myself in kind of like some awkward situations as far as like where I'm placed. Like I might be in the middle of the room, but if it's not a very deep room, right now, my people that are out on the outsides, I either had to turn my tops so that they could hear everything during their speeches, and then turn them back when it was really just for the dance floor, or I kind of had to fit it for another reason, like I had to play with it. You don't have that because it's such a wide dispersion on these. Even the Bose systems are that same way, right? They had that wide dispersion.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I also like about the systems, these mini line arrays that we're having is, it gives you that benefit of a top and a sub all in one piece, right? So Cubby mentioned about the ease of setup. Pretty much all of them that I've looked at have all had that easy setup type of piece to it. Some have, an extra cable that you might have to run, but for the most part, it's pretty quick and to the point. But it gives you all that crossover action within the system, right? A lot of the systems on the back, you can dial and you say, okay, I've got this type of sub on the bottom, or they might even be able to pick that particular sub within the brain of the computer on the back of the speaker. This is just like you plug in and it knows everything right there.
Yeah.
It's super easy to set up. And as Cubby said, I mean, the sound quality that comes out of them is great. And again, different strokes for different folks, right? There are some of those events out there, such as your big school dances, where if you're trying to do a line array, I don't think you're going to want to do that. These mini line arrays are not designed for that, but within the right application, absolutely.
I think one of the downfalls that I see is that people, the right application, people are buying those things, wanting to do bigger events with the mini array system. And because of that, they end up adding subs to it. And as we've talked in the Ben Stowe show, back to Ben again, goodness. There's cancellation that happens when you're running subs that don't match, or you're running different speakers that are not designed to be run together. Weird anomalies can happen when you have sound. So I think that is a downfall. And again, it's expecting something that does this job to do this job, I think, is really what that is. And that's just something, an unrealistic expectation for most DJs. But it's something to be aware of, that if you are doing these types of jobs, this may not be the best option for you when you start out. When you get more advanced and then you've got your gear for that, you can have your gear for that. But maybe not for today. All right, let's jump to our next question here. All right, we'll be right back here. Our next question is about having wedding couples when they're calling to book you and they want to have a long event. Now, for you East Coast and West Coast who are doing the 4-hour receptions because the room is only available for that, this is not going to be for you. But we have couples, especially in the Midwest, that are doing 8 to 10 hour dances or receptions from the time the guests arrive, and they want to go all the way to 1 or 2 in the morning type of thing. And it gets to be a very, very long, drawn out day on site for us. But we all know, though, as wedding people, sometimes that's just not going to be the party. The party isn't going to be what they think it is that way because of, however. How do you handle it when, Dan, someone comes up to and the bride or the groom is like, yeah, we've got this party crowd and we want to go till 2 a.m. And you're like, but guests arrive at 2 in the afternoon. How do you handle that?
I love this. All of our Canadian friends and friends are just basically going like, 10 hours? We're just getting started.
Yeah, we're just warming up. Oh, wait a second.
If you haven't ever talked to a Canadian DJ, like their weddings, I don't know if it's the exchange rate. That's probably what it is. It's the exchange rate, suddenly they go longer. But no, in all seriousness, what I really try and talk, any time I have someone that even reaches out for like 6 hours, I'm like, let's kind of put some perspective on this, right? Like, if we get through everything, you're still going to have X amount of time for dancing. And I get that you think, but when was the last time you went out to a club dancing and you went there at 10 o'clock and you stayed till 2, right? Like, you didn't do that. You probably went out drinking for like a couple hours. Maybe you pre-gamed or whatever, but you probably didn't show up till if you decided to stay till close, you probably didn't show up at 11 or 12 until 11 or 12. And then you left at 2, right? And in PA, we were done at 2. So for, others hours, appropriate. But the idea is, and I try and talk them out of that and just kind of from that perspective and be like, listen, if we have that raging party and you want to add an extra hour, I'm going to do it for the same rate, right? Like whether you book me now for that price or whether you book me the day of because this is a raging party and we're going to keep going, it's going to be the same. But I really try and talk them out of that just because I've had kind of that situation where they go, we need to extend it because we already booked it. Right. The party should end at, and I'm just going to say the party should have ended at 5 hours, but because we told you we wanted to go 6, we're going to make it go 6. And it just, the attitude in the night, the energy in the night, they're tired. They've been there all day, whatever. It's just, they get to a point and they're like, afterwards, man, we probably should have just done 5. But
I've had that same situation. Kevy, what are your thoughts when they're coming to you with a request for an 8 to 10 hour reception?
So where I live, we have a lot of dual purpose venues where they're getting married on site, short cocktail hour, dinner into dancing. And I share with my brides after the consultation and we were kind of wrapping everything up and we just kind of finalizing your timelines, like what time's the first guest, and I wait till the very end to talk about what time they want to end the party. I share with them that, right after dinner, you lose 20% of your guests for whatever reason. Maybe they're my Aunt Mabel. She doesn't drink. She doesn't dance. She drops her card off. She's out the door. She's a little older. You know what I'm saying? And she doesn't drink or dance. About 9 or 10, you're going to lose people with small kids, or maybe they have somewhere to drive 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And so you're going to lose those type of people. And then your friends will be there till the beer's gone. And nothing good happens past 11 o'clock. And I want to end at, I want all my weddings to have a big ending, big beginnings, grand intros, and a lot of fun in the middle, and then a big ending. And I said, I don't want 3 people drunk on the dance floor singing Don't Stop Believing. We want to have everybody in the dance floor singing Friends in Low Places or Piano Man or whatever. And I said, nobody really wants to be there for 8 hours in a day. You don't even want to be at your job for 8 hours. You've left the dog at home. Maybe you got a babysitter. So I kind of talked to them. And I also talked to them, do you have a dancing family? Maybe you don't have a dancing family. So I get to talk to them a little about it. And then, I said, look, if you find it crashing, sometimes during COVID, people got home earlier, right? They didn't stay out as late.
Mm-hmm.
And so then the venues where I'm at generally close at 11 anyway, or, want them out by midnight. So you got to get them done by 11 so they can clean up all their stuff to get out of there by midnight or they get charged extra. It's those ones that are on family properties that want to go till 2 a.m. And sure enough, some of them have really gone till 2 a.m. And so... it's just, like I said, just educating your brides and grooms, and sharing that 20% right after dinner, 30% with people with small kids, talking about the demographics are their guests, and then friends and beers gone, and then it clicks, and then if you see it crashing at 10:30, or 10:45, you're like, hey, you remember that big intro? And then I also talk to my bride and groom. My bride, you're not going to sleep the night before. You're going to be, no rest a week. Nerves are up and down. The day, the day of is going to be an emotional roller coaster for you. Your groom is going to sleep like a baby. He'll be fine. But I said, it's going to be, you're going to be exhausted. And they're like, yeah, So I get a lot of the, you're right, near the end, and you nailed it, type thing. So it's just basically being that resource for your couple. Tell them that you want the best party going to be walking out of there. Always leaving one more song, wanting more, and then when they buy into that, it makes it a lot easier to let it end when it needs to end.
You mentioned
2 points that you brought.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I've got my notes.
There's 2 points that you brought up that I think that were key there, and I think maybe is the difference of what we're dealing with now versus what we dealt with maybe 10 years ago, which is the before it was like the ceremony was someplace else, right? And maybe the church, but it was off premise from where you're at, and then they came to you for the reception, and I felt like in those times we had longer receptions because they were in 2 different locations, right? It didn't feel like they were in the same spot for X amount of hours. And so I think now having that one location all day, even though it makes it easier in a lot of aspects, it's like I've been here a long time, right? So I think that's one of those big keys to why that's been the difference. And I forget what the second one was.
You were probably
such a great idea.
It was that good.
You were probably going to talk about the 8-hour rule and how when they've been in the same room for 8 hours, because we've been kind of conditioned that an 8-hour workday is a thing, that people will get to that point and you can see it. If the ceremony was at 2 o'clock, we go 8 hours, that's 10 o'clock. That's when you're going to lose that last 50% of the crowd that's still there at 10 o'clock. They're gonna fall fast. And you're going to be down to that last group of people, and that's a legit big thing. I mean, if you've done weddings long enough, unless you're in Canada, you see that is a legitimate thing. Interestingly, after you mentioned this topic, just had a couple of conversations today with some of the local bar owners here because we're calling on ads. One of them is a venue that has entertainment, whether it's live music or a DJ, whatever, but they try to have regular entertainment. And I was looking at their timing, their schedule. It used to be that entertainment in a bar was, in our area, was like 8 to midnight. And then they would do one more, then it ends up at 12:30 because 1 o'clock is Minnesota shutdown time. And I was looking at that and it's like, wow, you're going 7 to 10. Maybe 11 o'clock with some of the larger, the semi-larger acts. And then they'll do a bigger act, once a month or something to that effect that goes until midnight. Otherwise, most of these, they've got more acts that are done by 10 o'clock than they do that go beyond 11 o'clock on their schedule. And he's like, yeah, that's just the way it is that people, you get to 10 o'clock, they'll come out, they'll have supper, they'll be like root ready to go, and they'll have a great time from 8 until like 9:30. And then he said at 9:30, this starts happening. No matter how much fun they're having. So he's like, we just have moved our schedule. We moved things up. And I think you might even see variations of that with the trivia. With these trivia events where they're moving, they're doing them earlier in the evening and people are, having fun from 8 until 9.
My trivia nights are 7 to 9. They clear dinner. We got a new money coming in right after the dinner rush, and then by 9, because people during the weekday want to head home. They want to be out there till 10 o'clock or 11. So generally, my trivia nights run from 7 to 9. Basically, a lot of my locations.
Yeah, so I think times have definitely changed.
COVID made us stay in a lot.
I wonder if that didn't have something to do with the ultimate results of, and it might be part of that. It trained us to stay in, or I wonder if we have lost a group of people who just don't go out like they would have. That maybe the people over 40 just aren't. I'm not sure. I haven't been able to put a finger on why exactly, but let's see. I don't know where in the world that one came from, unless I did an X out of it. So, okay, we're gonna jump to the next question here, guys. We'll do it again. Next question is about kind of a marketing direction, talking about a website. Somebody was asking, they're just starting out, should they have a website, or what should they do to get their name out there in this day and age? So I think we've hit this one before. We're going to hit it again tonight. So Cubby, I think you're up first on this one.
By all means, yes, legitimately have a website. Have an email address that associates with your website versus djabc@gmail.com. I think it legitimizes your business. Even if you are not a full-time DJ and you want to move to full-time DJ, I feel that it legitimizes you're a viable business. And every business has, everybody has a website, whether it's Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, Mexican restaurant, everybody has a website. Photographers, 100% get a website. And maybe starting on funds, if you're just starting out, get something simple, then move into and upgrade it as you go, as you start building. But yeah, I think by all means, and then you can integrate DJ event planner in there, get your leads coming through there. They go to your website, check your availability. It's you've got to. Like you said, you can't work off Facebook, can't work off TikTok, Instagram. I think 100% website.
Dan,
yeah, I'm going to add to that, or just kind of back up exactly what Cubby said. People are using you in such a way. It creates that legitimacy to what you're doing, but also, and I'll just say, let's assume for a second that you had a web address and you sent it to your Facebook page, right? There are people out there, couples out there that are going to be searching for you that don't use Facebook. As some of the generation goes, you have some that just don't use that, right? And you say, okay, well then I'm going to make mine go to Instagram. Okay, same issue. You might have some that don't use Instagram. Well, I'm going to have it go to how many different places are you going to try to send it to where you realize that the only place that they can get to you without having to belong to another type of social media is your website. Make it as easy as possible to get there. Even if it's just a single page site that says here, or follow my links here, or something like a link tree type of setup to where they can get to different social aspects that you do. Have a site for them to get to. Make it as easy as possible for them to find you, and make it as easy as possible for them to do business for you. The harder it is for them to find you, the more likely they're going to go to somebody else.
Dan, the thought of free websites, because you can go like to Wix and you can get johnyoung.wix.com type of thing, or I can go and spend the money to get a domain and invest more in it. It does cost more, and get hosting. Is it worth that investing that money, do you think? Doesn't matter.
I do. I know people that use and there are free content creations. Like there's ways to do the free building of the website. And I understand if you're on a limited budget, like watching that aspect to it. But again, just when they go to your site and they see your brand name, right, or they see your business name, it's going to be so much better to that. And it's just going to help in that long-term process. They're going to know you're there established. The domain name is cheap. It really is. It's, $10 a year, maybe 20, depending upon how crazy you might go with your name. But it's relatively inexpensive. The hosting is going to cost a little bit more, but even that is, in the grand scheme of things, is so incredibly cheap for what power it ends up giving you in the end. And there are free ones that you can do that still have your name. So for example, we have a nonprofit event that we do that my wife and I host. We have the title of the party is the domain name. I purchased that, and then the site is built on Google, right? It's hosted with them, so it's free because it was nonprofit. I tried to do it as inexpensive as possible.
Sure.
It's still able to do that. I paid for the domain. I've got that aspect to it, and the other piece is built. It's still better than taking that domain and sending it to some social media or a, like you said, like johnyoung.wix.com.
Kebby, if someone comes back and says, hey, I've got a really nice page that I put together on The Knot or Wedding Wire, whatever, and it looks really professional, why would I need a web page when I've got that built? What's your response?
Because The Knot is no longer giving away free subscriptions any longer. You've got to be grandfathered in for a lot of years. So you're going to be paying just as much for The Knot than you are for your website. And as Dan was talking about, buying domain names, they are very super cheap. I own every incantation of my company's name under a domain name. So my company's name is Select Entertainment. My website is called selectentertainmentiowa.com. I got SE Iowa for Select Entertainment. For $100, I've got like 10 different things that are all direct. Yeah. So if somebody's Googling me, I can get it right to, I've also got some of my competitors kind of close that they didn't buy the domain names either. Go to my website when they Google something like that. Hope nobody's watching my local area. But I don't think The Knot is there for you. Once again, you cannot capture. You can. It's hard to get a free listing of The Knot anymore. I don't think they offer it. If I'm not mistaken, I don't pay for The Knot. They don't offer free listings anymore. So if you're paying for it, you're going to spend a lot of money. Where you're going to invest that money into. There's a DJ in Illinois. He's a bald DJ. Like Dan, sorry, nothing against you. Ben Miller, can I say his name?
Yeah.
Ben Miller does websites, and he's does amazing websites. I saw recently he posted one for $1,500. He'll make your website for $1,500. And he's a former DJ, and they build websites and help with SEO. So when people Google DJs within your market, it'll help you with the search engine. Websites and buy domain names and secure yourself.
Do it the right way.
Here's the other problem with The Knot and Wedding Wire, just real quick, is you don't own that site, right? If The Knot decides that they want to do something or go in another direction, they've got you held captive, right? Let's assume for a second you do the domain name, you send it to it, you're purchasing with it, and you got all this, but then all of a sudden they decide, you know what? We're gonna go another direction, and we're gonna change our name, and we're gonna make it different. Now you're stuck. Right? Now you're stuck. So making sure that you have control of your site is going to be key.
Good advice.
That's a great one, Dan.
Let's jump to the next one. Next question. So the next one, somebody was asking about moving from part-time to full-time. How long did it take? Or what are some of the, I wanted to add, what are some of the thought processes behind why a person would go from a part-time position to a full-time position? Because sometimes that thought process is way more valuable than the amount of time from point A to point B, because there's a lot of things involved with that. So Cubby, you are a full-time DJ. And I was a full-time, that's all we did, until we started the Disc Jockey News, and then the Disc Jockey News became this entity. So I have been there on both sides of it. And Dan, you are a part-time DJ, and you also are a teacher. So just to get that out there for those of you out there. Cubby, we'll start with you. Let's handle that first one. How, from the time you started as a DJ to the time you were full-time, roughly how long did that take?
It took, I had a wife and 4 kids, so I needed double income for quite a bit. In the industry for a lot of years and worked with different publications and associations and software programmers within the DJ industry for a lot of years. So I had a lot of freedom. But when it came to me that I was making more money as my part-time job than I was on my full-time job, and I realized that I could do this full time and have more freedom with my family during the week. Yes, I was working every Saturday. Then it made sense for me that when I started looking at the numbers, what I was making at my DJ and what I was working with my yearly salary, when that became greater was the time for me to move on. When it became a grind for me to go to my daytime weekly job, full-time job, where I enjoyed my passion was DJing. So then I started adjusting my company. Within my contract, I have a 90-day payment and a 30-day payment. I have a deposit, a 90-day payment, and a 30-day payment. Being here in the Midwest, I don't do a lot of weddings in February. So what that payment program does for me is it gives me income all year round so I can pay my bills. So I've always got checks coming in, whether it's a 90-day payment, whether it's a 30-day payment, or if it's a deposit in the wintertime when I'm doing the bridal shows.
And those are changes you made once you were going full time, because now you had that. You're getting kind of ahead of us here a little bit. I want to read.
Oh, I'm sorry. I do that all the time.
Yeah, no, you're good. So from basically, how was it 2 years from that you basically made from your starting to the point where you were, or how long was it when you were where you became the full time DJ guy?
After I got divorced. No. And my ex-wife stopped spending my money. I had a wife and 4 kids and a wife that didn't work. So I was spending a lot of money. She doesn't watch the show, but when we divorced and I got her away from spending so much money, I was able to better financial control of my life. I encourage you to pay off bills and do the Dave Ramsey. I mean, there's even non-religious people that go to the Dave Ramsey financial peace seminars. So yeah, you've got to be financially, fiscally responsible. And then that growth will happen. But I would have to say, but I enjoyed working in the industry too, with all the associations I work for, the software companies. I enjoyed that. And I've had amazing bosses that I've worked for. And I hated leaving. They were the best. They're still great friends today. I would have to say I could have done it at 3 to 5 years, but I love my position within the industry. So I maybe worked a little bit longer.
Sure.
But once again, when it became that grind to where I got to get up and my daytime job wasn't any fun, then I looked forward to my passion of DJing and growing my own business. And that's when I started buying more gear, hiring more DJs, and then it grew that way. So always keep a lookout for talent, people with great personalities. My trivia hosting, we have trivia that we do locally, is a breeding ground for my hosts. Once they can get comfortable on the mic and can build their nights into great nights, I'm like, hey, you ever thought of doing about DJing? And I've got 2 DJs. That's all they do is full-time DJ. They don't even have other jobs that we're able to keep them busy throughout the whole year, and they can survive. So yeah, I guess it's fiscally responsible, and then making when you just can't do that grind any longer. And I know it's a big step. It's a scary step.
It definitely can be. Dan, now we've talked about this over a number of years, sometimes on shows, sometimes not. You aren't a full-time DJ, but you've toyed around with it on numerous occasions. What have been some of the things, and Cubby's already talked about some of the concerns a person has going to making that jump. What were some of your personal concerns that made it to the point where you're like, hey, I'm just going to keep this and go that route?
So it was tough for me. So very much like Cubby was saying, like that daily grind was really starting to get on me. And that was one time I think I remember I called you and we just talked, I don't know, like an hour, talking about different scenarios. And I just kind of wanted to get somebody else's input, because where I was at, I didn't know of anybody that did this full time, unless they were like a radio DJ and then they did the wedding DJ. That was about the extent of being like a full-time DJ in my area. And so it's very difficult. And so I started like considering it. But one of the things that I kind of got held up with was, I was making enough money at the day job and I was making a decent living at the DJ job, and I was kind of getting used to that new lifestyle. And so what ended up creating a problem was, if I took away the day job, was that going to free me up enough time to then take and replace that energy with a DJ? Even if it took a year or two, could I replace that income that I was losing with the DJ? And where I was at locally, no, not unless I wanted to get into something like with Cubby with the trivia nights, but then that meant I was being away from my family more, and I wasn't willing to sacrifice that. If I picked up if I could do Fridays and Saturday weddings or Saturday, Sunday weddings, and I could be like, okay, that's going to supplement the income, and now I'm going to be okay, then I would feel fine with it. But I wasn't getting that. In our area, if it's not a Saturday wedding, it just doesn't happen, right, with a couple rare exceptions. So I wasn't going to be able to take care of the money. And then there's the insurance side of it, right? Like, if you have a full-time job, most likely you have insurance. It might not be the best insurance, but it's still better than probably what you would have to be able to go out and get on your own. Now, some of our associations have been able to lobby, and so there's some help there, but it's still not, maybe necessarily, and it definitely was not as great as what I was dealing with.
Yeah.
So those were some of the things that kind of weighed in with me. And then, also to add to it, my wife works Monday through Friday. My boys are in school Monday through Friday. And if I, take away and I'm gone Saturdays and Sundays for events, now I'm really only seeing them in a much smaller time period. And I was already losing out on some of those moments with my kids. So one other thing that really kind of pulled me back into to stay part-time realm was, if I know that, Brendan is going to have this event on a Saturday in July, I can go, I don't have to take an event on a Saturday in July. My wife's birthday happens to be a Saturday in October a lot of times. So that weekend, I make sure that I don't take an event on that Saturday. And some DJs are like, I don't care whose birthday it is. I'm going to be
making
there.
money. Yeah,
exactly. But the part-time aspect affords me that flexibility to be able to say, I can pick and choose really what I want. And if I don't feel solid about an event, I can say no. And if I don't work that weekend, yeah, it kind of sucks because I lost out some money. But in the same respect, like, I'm not needing all that to survive on. It becomes that extra money that I can use.
Mm-hmm. So
that was the main gist.
No, that was good. That was very good. Thank you. From my personal side of it, started the official company we filed in 1990. That's when the name was done with the state. By 1993, we had gone full time. That included during the time I was teaching, as far as I was teaching in 91 and 92 type of thing. And then in 93, fall of 93, we went full time, multiple systems throughout the years. That was my only income really until probably 2004, the Disc Jockey News started. And the Disc Jockey News hasn't made much of any income since then, so that didn't count. But anyway, that became my next project that I got into. Interestingly enough, one of the reasons why that having the Disc Jockey News worked is kind of like what you were saying, Dan, where when your spouse has got a day job and they're doing their thing, and could be your off time. Well, back in the 90s, Lori was DJing with me and doing her thing, and then she was working for a different business at that time. And she had vacation days. So in the summertime, we could take off Monday through Thursday or Monday, whatever it was. We could take off early in the week, which worked for my DJ. It worked for her where she was working. And we could go camping during the week. That was fabulous, and it worked wonderfully for us at that time. Well, once Lori went and she started her own newspaper, that meant that her work week was Monday through Thursday, that she basically had a full day and was in the office or doing delivery, whatever. So that meant that either I have to try to find something that kind of fits that schedule, so then I can have some of those weekends off type of thing. And that really, the Disc Jockey News kind of fit into that category. Then I could have my work week kind of coincide with hers. Looking back at it, there's many things, though, as a full-time I miss, and specifically that ability to basically say, hey, let's just go. If we had our same working conditions we had back in the 90s, we could take a week off and we could go vacation. We could do like Cubby does and goes and travels to every, Cubs field around the country and play baseball or, run the bases. I don't know what they do at those things. Hit slap shots. I don't know. That part I miss. I miss that ability to go and be at a campground in northern Minnesota on a Tuesday when no one else is there. We got the whole place to ourselves. That doesn't happen anymore. And I do miss that capability. But overall, it is kind of nice not to also have to, it's kind of like, as you said, Dan, is you don't have to take everything that comes across your desk. You can say, I want to take that weekend off and I want to be, the 4th of July weekend. I don't need to have three $300 shows just because that's the only thing I can book that weekend. I'll just take that off and we'll work some other day.
I gotta admit though, I thought when I went full time, I'd have a lot of time to myself, like during the week, and I do, but there's still a lot of I'm still grinding Monday through Friday and working just as hard. Probably harder. I don't know. It's just, but I do have freedom that if I didn't want to, I didn't, I have nobody to answer to. But it will hit me 6 months later. Doesn't hit me immediately, but it'll hit me 6 to 9 months later when I didn't book an event or did wasn't around. I don't know. I do. Yeah. It's just because you're a full-time DJ does not mean you've got like you can, but it may not affect you the next week, but it could affect you in 6 to 9 months. So it's still a constant grind to continue to drive.
Guys, I want to get one more question in before we wrap up. So let's get our last one next. Our final question tonight is about tipping. Is this something that you accept? Is this something you encourage? Or how do you handle the whole tipping when it comes to your DJ services? Let's see, Dan, are you, who cubby starts this one?
Dan.
Okay. Me? Okay. So to the first part, do I accept a tip at a wedding? Yeah. I'm assuming
yeah.
Maybe we should put some parameters here on this. Are we talking about a guest comes up and tries to give me money to play a song, or are we talking about a couple that comes up at the end of the night?
I think either one. I think I think we need to cover both of those aspects.
Okay, so let me cover the first one. If I have a guest that comes up and tries to give me money for playing a song, I tell them no. I usually just say, go take care of the bartender, right? Like, I'm getting paid well enough for this. Sometimes, depending on how insistent they are, sometimes I'll throw the whole, listen, I'm getting paid well enough for this. I don't need this. Go take care of the bartender, right? Like, go get a drink, put an extra money, put an extra $5 in their jar. That's fine. Go do that, right? That's my philosophy when it comes to guests giving me money. When it comes to the couple at the end of the night, it kind of depends upon how they hand it to me. Right? Like I've had some come up and they'll try and then they'll go to give me the money and be like, are you sure? Like, I thank you, but are you sure about this? And they're like, oh yeah. All right, sure. Thank you very much. And I never count it in front of them. I don't care what it is. If it's a $2 bill or if it's, $200, it doesn't matter. Right. At the end of the night, I'll look at it and that's when I'll be, whatever. And I usually send them a thank you afterwards. If they give it to me in an envelope, I never assume there's money in it. So if they give it to me in an envelope, then I, whether it's a card or whatever, then I just immediately say thank you. Again, I still don't open it and I put it like in my drawer or in my case or something like that, and just give them hugs and pretend like they didn't really necessarily hand me anything money wise, because for whatever reason I don't like to handle it that day. I like to take care of my payments ahead of time. I like to do all that ahead of time, so the day of, money really doesn't come into the factor. Now if they tip, often that's great, but I don't really encourage it. It almost sounds like I'm trying to defer it, and some of you are thinking, are you nuts? Maybe, but that's just kind of always been my philosophy and how I've handled it from the beginning, because I get paid very well for this and I don't see it as tipping being required.
Sure. Kebby.
Wow, I've seen a lot of things recently, especially on the forums, about the tipping thing. Some people will put it in like the last email, tipping's not expected, but it's very. I don't do anything like that. More people are more than welcome to run their business any way they want to. We don't pan for tips. We don't pander for it, or on the side of the road, the side. But we do have a guest. Same thing as Dan. I'm like, look, the bride group took care of me this evening. They paid for everything. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. What song can I get on for you? Johnny Cash, Ring of Fire. Not gonna happen. I don't care if you paid me $100. It's like shit ain't gonna happen. But when a couple does it, I just graciously accept it. I'm like Dan. I don't count it. Put it in my pocket. Hug them hard. Once again, very gracious, very nice. It's a gesture. It's a gesture for thanking you for doing a job well done, and I don't want to take that away from them. Or make them, or make them feel bad. I'm bad at accepting gifts myself, so I just very graciously accept them and just thank them so much. But I don't think it should be put at the bottom of an email. I think that's cheesy. I don't think having a tip jar out there is. I've seen people doing that. Maybe club work. I don't know. Some guys might do it in a club. That's great. That's your
different story.
That's what you do. But I don't think pandering for tips. Price yourself to what you think you're valued at, and accept that value and don't expect anything above it, because you are the owner of the company. As far as my employees, once again, if anybody does ask me, I'm like, well, you do know they don't make the full amount, so I'm sure they appreciate anything that you give them if they did a job well done. But once again, don't pander for it in any type of an email or ask for it in any way, shape, or form.
And one area that was, this is a discussion 20 years ago when we were talking contracts an awful lot, is that people would, some companies, especially multi-system companies, would have a line towards the bottom, basically, and travel and tip and total, that type of thing, and with a suggested rate of what the tip could be or should be if they wanted to do that. Again, that pandering for tip, I think, is a little tacky myself, even if it is something that is in the contracts for staff members in a multi-system case. I don't agree with that. Back to the guests. When I have a guest come up there and they throw a 5 out and they're like, "Hey, can you play something?" I generally like to tell them, "You hear the song that's going right now?" And they're like, "Yeah." And it's like, "Yeah." The person who they gave me a 10. Yeah, no, I don't know.
Take that 5 away and get out of here.
Yeah, get that little 5 out of here. It's not going to get you. No, I don't do that. Okay, gentlemen, we are up and out of time for tonight. So tomorrow, again, 7 o'clock Eastern, it will be Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe coming to you from Las Vegas. Ben's going to give us a walk around their demo room, so catch that. And then we're working on, at the regular Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe, which would be 9 o'clock Eastern, I'm going to see if Brian's available, and Brian and I might do something there. And then, of course, the Chill Room, which is open tonight. Howie's going to be up here in 5 minutes at djntv.com/chill with Hanging with Howie. And then tomorrow night, we'll figure out, and there will be a 9 o'clock something, and then of course the 10 o'clock music show, which maybe Brian and I are going to sit on that one because Jay is out in Las Vegas. I don't know. I've got to talk to Brian more about that. And then Wednesday night, a couple of the shows will run in the 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock Eastern hours. So I think that's it. I think we covered our bases.
On that note, thank you very much for taking time out of your night to join the three of us. Hopefully we answered your question. If not, well, then you need to ask us. We know how to answer it. Pretty much that's the way it goes. Have yourself a good one. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.